Here are the headlines for Thursday morning, August 15, 2024. Russia ready to execute nuclear attacks on North Atlantic Treaty Organization targets, according to leaked documents. Russia has reportedly drawn up plans between 2008 and 2014 for overwhelming strikes across Western Europe, including the potential use of nuclear warheads against military and infrastructure targets in countries such as France, Norway, Germany, Estonia, and the United Kingdom. According to documents from Western security sources, these plans demonstrate Russia's capability to transport nuclear weapons on surface ships, despite a treaty signed with the United States in 1991 intended to eliminate this possibility. Experts warn that this raises the risk of escalation or accident, particularly given Russia's arsenal of over 5,500 nuclear warheads. It's communism. Kamala's first economic plan proposes price controls to combat inflation. Vice President Kamala Harris is proposing a federal ban on corporate price gouging in the food and grocery industries, echoing President Biden's actions and rhetoric to crack down on high food prices. The proposal aims to impose stiff penalties on companies that exploit consumers to increase profits. However, critics argue that this move reeks of socialism and will lead to shortages and exacerbate the problem rather than solve it. Economic experts point out that inflation is driven by monetary inflation caused by the Federal Reserve's money creation, not corporate greed, and that price controls are a symptom of a larger issue with government spending and borrowing. Would it kill you guys? Cable news network gets confrontational with Harris spokesperson for avoiding interviews, press conferences. The Harris campaign's strategy of limiting media appearances by Kamala Harris may be working from a polling perspective, but it has gone on for so long that even CNN is expressing frustration. The network's Jim Acosta pressed Harris Communications Director Michael Tyler to explain why Harris had not held a press conference, with Tyler deflecting the question and citing the campaign's busy schedule of rallies and events. Meanwhile, Trump did a lengthy press conference at Mar-a-Lago last week and had a 2-hour conversation with Elon Musk, highlighting the contrast between the two campaigns' approaches to media engagement. Reclaiming strength and rebuilding lost muscle. To regain muscle strength after inactivity, it is essential to consume sufficient protein, ideally 1 gram or more per pound of ideal body weight, and incorporate 15 grams of essential amino acids into meal. Additionally, supplementing with collagen and creatine can be beneficial for healing and recovery. However, nutrition alone is not enough. Mental resilience plays a crucial role in physical recovery. Cultivating mental grit through tracking progress, setting achievable goals, and celebrating milestones can help individuals stay motivated and focused throughout the recovery process. Regular fitness tests such as DEXA scans and at-home assessments can also provide tangible evidence of improvements and boost motivation. United States retail sales beat thanks to yet another massive downward revision. Retail sales in the United States surged by 1% in July, exceeding expectations of a 0.4% rise. This increase is the largest since January 2023 and contradicts the soft landing narrative. 2/3 of the growth came from auto sales, which saw a significant surge despite dealers slashing prices due to low demand. The data revisions also showed that the previous month's retail sales were revised lower for the 8th time in the last year, making the current month's beat more impressive. This has raised concerns about data manipulation and its potential impact on future economic trends. Taliban flexes United States weapons in military parade left behind by Biden-Harris botched Afghan exit. The Biden-Harris administration's poorly planned withdrawal from Afghanistan led to the deaths of 13 United States service members, stranded Americans, and the transfer of billions of dollars in United States military equipment to the Taliban terrorist group. The chaotic withdrawal allowed Taliban fighters to seize Black Hawk helicopters, a 29 Super Tucano attack aircraft, armored Humvees, and 600,000 weapons, including grenade launchers, machine guns, and rifles. Despite this, President Biden falsely claimed during a presidential debate that he was the only president this century and this decade with no troops dying anywhere in the world. The Taliban recently held a massive military parade showcasing the United States equipment they obtained, marking the 3rd anniversary of their takeover of Afghanistan, further highlighting the colossal failure of the Biden-Harris administration's withdrawal from the war-torn nation. Federal Bureau of Investigation will neither confirm nor deny the existence of Satoshi's records. The United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, responded to a Freedom of Information Act request from investigative journalist Dave Troy by neither confirming nor denying the existence of records identifying Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto. The FBI's response implied that Satoshi was a third-party individual, sparking speculation about the true identity behind the pseudonym. Despite numerous attempts to uncover Satoshi's identity, including a similar request in 2018, no one has definitively proved who he or she may be. Who owns America? Oligarchs have bought up the American dream. The American government is essentially owned by corporations and foreign interests, which wield significant influence over politicians and the economy. The country's land, businesses, and media are being bought up by these entities, while the national debt has ballooned to more than $34 trillion, with 29% of it held by foreign owners. The government prioritizes the interests of corporations over those of its citizens, leading to a situation where we, the people, have become the new underclass in America, forced to shell out money for wars, surveillance systems, and other programs that benefit the wealthy at their expense. World Health Organization declares monkeypox global health emergency again. The World Health Organization, WHO, has declared an African outbreak of mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, a public health emergency of international concern, the highest level of alarm the WHO can convey. The declaration comes after more than 14,000 reported cases and 524 reported deaths in Africa this year, with the emergence of a new strain of the virus. Pox is a virus that occurs in animals and humans and can spread between people, causing an illness that typically manifests with a rash and resolves in a few weeks, but some cases can lead to death, predominantly affecting men who have sex with other men. This is the second time in 2 years the WHO has declared monkeypox a public health emergency of international concern, following a previous declaration in 2022 that was quietly rescinded in 2023. Human rights lawyer, Olympic boxers, cyberbullies, lawsuit a threat to free speech. A human rights lawyer warns that a lawsuit brought by Algerian Olympic boxer Imane Khelif against prominent personalities such as Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling could set a significant precedent against free speech. The lawsuit alleges acts of aggravated cyber harassment, but the case may also involve questions about Khelif's eligibility to compete as a woman due to previous failed gender tests. Lawyer David Hai notes that if the Paris prosecutors proceed with the case, they will have jurisdiction to come after individuals in other countries, potentially leading to policing of social media across borders and setting a significant precedent for free speech and gender politics. The shiny new Kamala Harris that propaganda built. Kamala Harris has undergone a significant transformation in recent weeks, courtesy of the mainstream media propaganda machine. Her past mistakes and controversies have been memory-holed, and she is now being presented as a viable candidate for president. The polls are showing her in a favorable light, but it remains to be seen whether this is an accurate reflection of public opinion or simply a result of clever manipulation by the media and Harris's campaign team. An intricate fabric of bad actors working hand in hand, so is war inevitable? The Middle East is heading towards war as tensions escalate between Israel, Iran, and Hezbollah, which could draw in Russia and China. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has been pushing for an all-out war on Iran, despite the risks of a wider conflict. His strategy is to provoke a response from Iran that would lead to U.S. involvement, thereby gaining support for his agenda. However, this approach has put Iran in a difficult position, as it must carefully consider its next move to avoid escalating the situation further. The situation is complicated by the fact that Russia has assisted Iran with its air defenses and that the U.S. is involved in Ukraine, which could lead to a broader conflict. California Sheriff blasts Harris for using his image in misleading campaign ads, says he supports Trump. Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreaux is criticizing Kamala Harris for her misleading political ad that fraudulently touted her border security record while using his image without permission. The ad claims Harris took on drug cartels and jailed gang members as a border state prosecutor, but Boudreaux says she undercut local law enforcement efforts to stop crime at the border. He points out that Harris eliminated task forces and did not care about stopping people from illegally crossing the border, despite her claims of being tough on the border. Boudreaux also expressed his disgust with Harris' haughty attitude during a 2014 visit to the Central Valley, where she took credit for a multinational drug operation investigation done by local law enforcement. Massachusetts set for record number of deportations despite sanctuary state status. The state of Massachusetts is set to deport a record high number of illegal aliens in the fiscal year 2024. Despite being considered a sanctuary state, over 44,000 deportation cases have been filed in the first 9 months, with an expected total of 59,000 by the end of the year. Governor Maura Healey has reversed her previous stance on open borders and is now limiting the length of stay for illegals at state-run shelters to just 5 days, while also offering to pay for plane tickets to send them out of the state. World's top steelmaker warns of a harsh winter amid growing fears of a 2008 or 2015 style downturn. Central banks, including the Federal Reserve, have pushed their interest rate hiking cycle too far, sparking concerns that the global economic landing might be turbulent. Meanwhile, Chinese investors are wary of growth prospects for the world's second-largest economy. Beihua Steel Group, the world's biggest steel producer in China, warned that the steel industry is plunging into a prolonged, harsh winter and emphasized the importance of cash over profit during this period. The downturn in the steel industry has been attributed to the property market downturn in China, which continues to worsen, and factory activity remains under pressure. These troubling trends have led investors to be extremely cautious about China's growth outlook and sparked concerns that global economic slowdowns are heating up worldwide. China port explosion snarls trans-Pacific container trade. The closure of Ningbo Balin's Phase 3 terminal in China is expected to have cascading effects on the main trans-Pacific trade lanes out of Asia and the supply chain at large. The terminal was closed following a shipboard explosion involving hazardous materials, specifically organic peroxide, aboard the Yangming vessel IM Mobility. No injuries were reported, but container traffic has been halted until further notice. This shutdown comes at a critical time as record peak volumes for North American imports are forecast for August. Criminalization of dissent delayed. German authorities postponed C.J. Hopkins' swastika tweets retrial at last minute. The author's trial in Berlin Superior Court was postponed at the 11th hour for unclear reasons. The postponement comes after the author's attorney filed a motion alleging bias by the court judge who issued a so-called security order. A recent article about the prosecution was published in the major German newspaper, Berliner Zeitung, and international press coverage has been extensive. Despite this, the author believes that the German authorities are proud of their actions and are not ashamed to be prosecuting an author for 2 tweets. The author is grateful for the public attention focused on the case and argues that stripping away the facade of democracy is one of the only ways to fight back against the criminalization of dissent. Don't let Washington do to airlines what it did to Amtrak. The airline industry is facing potential regulation that could lead to increased prices and reduced access for travelers. Proponents of new regulations argue they are needed to address issues such as baggage policies, fees, and seat sizes. However, deregulation in the late 1970s led to increased competition, lower prices, and greater accessibility for air travel. The number of cities connected by nonstop service increased, and nearly 90% of Americans have flown at some point in their lifetime. Lawmakers are considering new regulations despite the fact that it has been 15 years since the last fatal commercial airline crash in the United States. White British police officers win discrimination case were not considered for promotion due to skin color. 3 white police officers in the Thames Valley Police Force have won an employment tribunal case after being passed over for promotion due to their race. The tribunal found that a superintendent had been tasked with improving diversity by appointing an Asian sergeant to the rank of detective inspector, and 3 white officers who were more qualified were actively blocked from applying for the position. A month later, Sergeant Sidhu, who was less experienced, was appointed without a competitive employment process, leading the tribunal to conclude that this constituted positive discrimination against the three white officers. United Kingdom man arrested for social media posts containing anti-establishment rhetoric. A 40-year-old man in the United Kingdom has been arrested and charged for social media posts containing anti-establishment rhetoric. Wayne O'Rourke was taken into custody in connection with online posts that allegedly contained anti-Muslim sentiments and expressed support for recent riots. The charges have sparked concerns about free speech, as similar rhetoric has been used by various groups without resulting in arrest or prosecution. O'Rourke's case will be heard at Lincoln Crown Court on charges of publishing written material online to stir up racial hatred. Let the American people have autonomy over their automobiles. The Environmental Protection Agency finalized a rule requiring 56% of vehicle sales in the United States to be electric by 2032, which effectively functions as a de facto gas car ban on light and medium-duty vehicles. This mandate would harm the automotive manufacturing industry, particularly in Pennsylvania, where it is deeply ingrained in the state's culture and economy. The rule ignores consumer sentiment, with electric vehicle sales falling 15.2% in the first quarter of 2024 compared to the previous quarter, and forces Americans to purchase expensive vehicles they may not want or cannot afford. Federal Trade Commission says Google antitrust ruling goes beyond Epic Games. Hints technology monopolists should be broken up. The United States Federal Trade Commission filed an amicus brief in the Epic Games antitrust lawsuit against Google's monopolistic behavior, suggesting that the court impose stringent actions against such practices. The commission emphasized that ensuring antitrust laws are strictly enforced is essential for protecting economic freedom and the free enterprise system. While not directly stating it, the FTC hinted at a possible breakup of Google as a negotiating tactic, recommending that the district court should ensure that the violating firm does not continue securing benefits obtained through breaching antitrust rule. Buffett 13 confirmed sale of 400 million Apple shares, other liquidations, new positions in ULTA and HEI. At the beginning of August, billionaire Warren Buffett had sold more than half of his Apple holdings, approximately 400 million shares, as part of Berkshire's biggest portfolio liquidation on record. This saw some $75.5 billion in stock sales during the second quarter of 2024. How many doctors do the world's largest economies have? Violence against doctors is not new in India, where 75% of respondents to a 2017 study by the Indian Medical Association reported experiencing some form of violence at their workplace. The state of medical care in the country is partly to blame, with large parts of the healthcare sector privatized, leading to a lack of trust in hospitals and other medical institutions. India spent just 3% of its gross domestic product on public health in 2021, which is evident in the number of doctors per 10,000 people, with only 7.3 doctors per 10,000 residents compared to the global average of 20.2. These are the world's youngest countries. The youngest countries in the world are located in Africa, with Niger being the youngest at a median age of 15 years. The Middle East and Asia-Pacific regions have younger countries with median ages ranging from 20 to 22 years. In contrast, Europe's youngest countries are much older, with Kosovo having a median age of 32 years, Albania at 36 years, and Iceland at 38 years. The oldest countries in the world, including Japan, Italy, Spain, and Germany, have median ages between 47 and 50 years and face demographic challenges such as a shrinking working-age population that threatens economic growth. Bullion, Bitcoin, and black gold battered but sanguine consumer price index slams leave stocks and bonds confused. Inflation data continue to drift back lower, but macro growth data remain near CEO-VID lockdown lows, causing concerns about potential growth scares among traders who reduced rate cut expectation. The markets were confused, with mixed performances across different sectors and assets, including small caps, the Dow, yield curves, dollar rates, gold prices, and cryptocurrency values. Despite this confusion, market-driven financial conditions have eased dramatically in recent months, with some analysts suggesting that the market is demanding 200 basis points of cuts this year. 45% of Bitcoin supply has not moved in 6 months. Nearly half of the available Bitcoin supply has not moved in the past 6 months, according to on-chain data from analytics firm Glassnode. The data shows that investors did not sell their holdings at the top of the market, despite record highs and subsequent volatility, with long-term holders distributing coins both leading up to the all-time high and later on. This suggests a notable slowdown in the distribution pressure by long-term holders, which has led to the percentage of network wealth held by this cohort stabilizing and then growing again. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tried to meet with Harris in pursuit of cabinet position. Independent 2024 presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tried to secure a meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris last week in hopes of trading an endorsement for a top job in her administration. Despite his efforts, Team Harris has ignored his pitch, with Kennedy expressing disappointment and stating that it is a strategic mistake for them to ignore him. Kennedy's poll numbers have declined since the Democrats pressured President Biden into calling off his re-election campaign, with some polls suggesting that his presence on ballots is actually a net benefit to Harris. Kennedy also secured a meeting with Donald Trump last month in Milwaukee, offering the same deal he proposed to Harris, and reportedly expressed interest in advising Trump on health and medical policy. Approximately 87 million people are at risk of poverty in Europe. In 2023, 94.6 million people in the European Union were at risk of poverty or social exclusion, accounting for just over 21% of the population. This figure has remained relatively stable compared to the previous year. The share of people at risk of poverty or social exclusion varies significantly from one European Union country to another, with Romania, Bulgaria, Spain, and Greece having the highest shares, while the Czech Republic, Slovenia, and Finland recorded the lowest shares. They cannot keep the lies straight. For the 13th month, in the last 16, United States industrial production data was revised lower, significantly lower than initially reported. As a result, industrial production in the United States tumbled 0.6% from June to July, dragging production down 0.2% year over year after revision. Additionally, manufacturing also fell more than expected, with a decline of 0.3% month over month, and thanks to further downward revisions, the year-over-year change decreased to just 0.1%. Pentagon belatedly reveals 8 United States troops were wounded in Syria attack last week. A drone attack struck the Rumelan landing zone in northeast Syria last Friday, wounding 8 United States troops who were treated for traumatic brain injuries and smoke inhalation. 3 of those service members have returned to duty while the others remain under observation, with none of the injuries considered life-threatening. This incident is part of a recent surge in rocket and drone attacks on United States positions in Iraq and Syria by Iran-aligned militias or Syrian national militias, which has led some to question what the Pentagon is still doing there. Futures rise ahead of data deluge, including key retail sales report. Global markets are moving higher today as investors await the release of United States retail sales data. The Standard & Poor's futures are up 0.2% for the 5th day in a row. Nasdaq futures also rose 0.1%, led by technology companies such as Mag 7 and Semis. Meanwhile, bond yields are flat to up 1 basis point, and the United States dollar is unchanged against other major currencies. Vote integrity's nitty-gritty, the battle lines of 2024's epic struggle. The citizenship status of registered voters is being scrutinized by conservative organizations such as America First Legal, which has sent letters to all 50 states instructing them to request this information from the Department of Homeland Security. Some states are pushing back against non-citizen voting, with Louisiana and Ohio passing amendments to prohibit it in 2022, while other jurisdictions like New York City have attempted to extend voting rights to non-citizens, arguing that they contribute to their communities through taxes and public services. Retail sales preview, all in the seasonal adjustments. 1 month ago, Bank of America's real-time card spending data indicated another poor retail sales report was expected, but instead the June retail sales unexpectedly beat expectations for headline, core, and control group. However, upon closer inspection, it appeared that this was due to seasonal adjustment chicanery rather than actual improvement in retail sales, with unadjusted retail sales remaining largely unchanged for almost 3 years running. Walmart beats earnings, lifts outlook as consumers trade down to big box retailer. Walmart reported strong second quarter earnings of $4.5 billion, or 56 cents per share, surpassing analyst estimates due to its strategy of offering the lowest prices and best deals for cash-strapped consumers struggling with elevated inflation and high interest rate. Sales rose 4.8% to $169.33 billion, beating expectations of $168.46 billion, while comparable store sales grew about 4.2% in the United States. Can the Federal Reserve defend cutting rates with non-seasonally adjusted jobless claims near record lows? Jobless claims in Texas have decreased significantly following Hurricane Beryl, with initial jobless claims reaching multi-decade lows on a non-seasonally adjusted basis. Continuing claims also declined but remain above 1.8 million. The low jobless claims pose a challenge for the Federal Reserve to defend rate cuts, raising questions about how they will justify such actions with unemployment rates near record lows. Losing fiat faith, Western currencies are on a path of secular and permanent debasement. The Bank of England's new lender of first resort approach highlights the permanent debasement of Western fiat currencies, including the dollar and the pound. The Bank of England is implementing a new system for reserves that will likely lead to greater balance sheet deterioration and further debasement of the currency. A similar outcome is expected in the United States, with the dollar's real value continuing to be degraded due to central banking policies. I tried it twice, 10 less bullish observations on artificial intelligence. Hundreds of millions of people have tried ChatGPT, but most have not returned for further use. Upon closer examination, it becomes apparent that many individuals only played with the platform once or twice, while others may revisit every couple of weeks. 60 more Chinese stocks to be culled from Morgan Stanley Capital International Indexes. MSCI Incorporated is removing 60 Chinese stocks from its indexes in its latest quarterly review, while adding 7 Indian stocks to the list. The removals include state-backed firms such as CSSC Science and Technology Company Limited and a VIC Industry Finance Holdings, with only 2 Chinese stocks being added to the global standard indexes, Huinan Langkang and Victory Giant. Meanwhile, India is becoming a bigger beneficiary, with its weight on the MSCI index set to climb up to 19.8% from 19.2%, while China's weight will drop from 24.8% to 24.2%. This follows a record $40 billion in foreign investments being pulled out of China during the second quarter of this year, marking the first time the semi-annual figure has gone below zero, and potentially leading to the first year on record with a net outflow of foreign direct investment. United States equity futures are mixed and DXY flat ahead of United States initial jobless claims, retail sales, Australian dollar bid post jobs data. United States market open. To access Newsquawk's premium real-time audio news, follow 3 steps. Subscribe to the free pre-market movers reports. Listen to the Market Open podcast available on Apple and Spotify, and trial Newsquawk's premium service for 7 days. The service provides notable data recaps, European headlines, U.S. headlines, Middle East updates, and Asia-Pacific headlines.